Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sunday interview. I'm back. Of course, your arts. Okay, I'm going again. All right, here we go. 3, 2. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sunday interview. I have the privilege, the white privilege, if you will, to be hosting the show today. Last one. This is it. Okay. 3. Stephen, you remember this?
I do. I think you got into like 8 takes with my episode.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
So a little side note. Am I gathering this is a right-wing podcast? Is that accurate?
No.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I am Republican, but no. This is YouTube, so we want that liberal money. So please.
All right.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Oh, hang on. How do you say your last name? Nunes?
Yeah.
Nunes, okay. And Stephen Settanni.
Stephen Settanni.
Stephen Settanni. Are you?
No, I'm not.
Stephen Settanni. Okay.
Close
And
enough.
Is Stephen a comedian also?
He should be.
I'm not, but I'm a host of a podcast called a Comedy Advice Podcast, where I bring on a lot of comedians. And sorry, should I not be plugging right now? Is this a bad time to do it?
No, I got to comedy. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sunday interview. Now, this is a privilege of mine because not only do I got my favorite guest back on the show, I got one of the top comedians in America right now. He has his own Amazon stand-up special. It's called Who's With Me. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you, Jeremy Nunes. Jeremy, how are you doing today?
Hey, I am awesome. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How you been?
Good, man. I am just impressed. We won't tell anybody it took you 12 takes to do the intro there, buddy.
And that second person you hear laughing is the host of the Comedy Advice Podcast. Definitely, if not my favorite guest of all time, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. See, he's already laughing at me. Stephen Settanni.
Man. There you go. Hey, you did it. Amazing. Bravo, as we say in Italian. That was amazing. Good job, Joe. It's a pleasure. By the way, it's a pleasure. È un piacere. It's a pleasure to be back on the podcast, especially in the presence of a great comedian like Jeremy. So this is awesome.
Well, thanks, Stephen. I did not realize you were Italian. I guess I should have known by the last name. I am actually half Italian, and well, yeah, you saw the dry bar, so I won't tell the joke. But for everybody else, yeah, my mom is 5'6" Italian, dad's 5'7" Hispanic, and FedEx guy 6'6" and pasty white. So
that's so funny you said that because my mom's white, my dad's Puerto Rican, and my real father is also pasty, and he was a milkman. He was a milkman too.
There you go.
That's funny.
So we may be brothers.
I could tell, Jeremy, you were half Italian because I saw only one of your hands making sign language. So I was like, there he is.
You're supposed to be a little of this.
That's why I keep him below the camera. So I don't want to get distracted.
So let's get started. Jeremy, let's go to the beginning. Where are you from?
So That is not I thought you were going to ask me how I got into comedy when you said go back to the beginning.
That's the second question.
Oh, okay. Well, I can combine them then, man. So, grew up in a small town right outside of Springfield, Illinois. And as is the small town tradition, you're supposed to sort of follow in the footsteps of your father's work and then his father's work before him, et cetera, et cetera. And true story, as you notice, I'm still just talking with the one hand here. But as true story, so my family ran the trailer park in the town, still do to this day. And my dad really wanted me to take over the family business and run the trailer park. But I was, the comedy bug had bit me. I wanted to keep going. And so I helped my dad understand that I could make just as much money doing stand-up comedy and annually earn tens of dollars.
It's so funny because I should name, you know what? After watching our interview, Settanni, and watching other interviews I've done, I should call this the Sunday interview. I should call it, it's so funny, because that's like the number one thing I say. It's so funny. It's so funny. You know what? It's so funny that you said this. So you guys started at comedy. I always wondering, hecklers. Have you had a big deal with hecklers on stage before?
A lot of people think hecklers are kind of a regular thing. It's really not. It's pretty rare for someone to just all out turn on you and yelling, so like you suck or get off the stage, anything like that. Now, a lot of times what's pretty common is the drunk person who wants to, they think they're helping the show by sort of communicating with you. So that happens all the time. Dealing with drunk people is an art unto itself. And I do a lot of church shows, so deal with that a lot.
You speak about church shows, and I was watching your drag comedy show. It was drag comedy bits.
Dry bar
on YouTube. Dry bar. Anyway, I was watching your stand-up special on YouTube, and you was talking about your wife picking the restaurant, and it took me back to church when I was watching it, because if you go to church in the South, after you finish church, you go out to eat. It's just a tradition. Everybody does it. The only people that don't do it now is me and my wife. But back in the day when I would go to church, and I'll have a group of my aunt, my uncle, and then all of their friends, you have to pick a restaurant. And sometimes they'll allow me to pick the restaurant. And then once I pick the restaurant, guess what? No, that's okay. We're not in the mood for that. No, that's okay. And then somebody else ends up picking the restaurant. And then you're like, why did you even ask me for my opinion? And, it's a good thing that my wife's a vegan. So what was your motivation to get into comedy?
Well, it was just something I'd always wanted to do. So then I couldn't really tell you what was, I can remember being a little kid wanting to do it. Now, a lot of people ask what was the motivation to bring the guitar into comedy, which I do sometimes. So I've got the guitar. I was always inspired to watch a lot of Adam Sandler doing his stuff on SNL. And then when I kind of first started in the early 2000s, Jimmy Fallon was at his peak on SNL, and he was always doing the funny songs on guitar. So I really wanted to follow in those footsteps. So when I was in college, I picked up a guitar, learned how to play it, and thought I'd do a little bit of comedy with it. But that was also still mostly to impress girls in my dorm.
Now, and I think that's so cool that you integrate that into your comedy. And I was thinking and listening to another interview of yours where you were talking about when you got into comedy, you first, and I know you just said you liked and watched Adam Sandler, Chris Farley as well. And your first time you were trying to be very animated and do Chris Farley-esque things, and it just didn't work. And so there was a little bit of a gap between your first time and then your second time where you won a competition of like funniest comic. And I wanted to ask really quickly, because you had said why somebody had asked why the gap, and you said, well, I felt like maybe it wasn't for me. So I wanted to ask, why did you, at what point did the change of heart come into play? And what made you think of giving it another chance?
I had a friend of mine who just kept pushing and pushing and pushing, saying, you got to go one more time. You got to go one more time. At the same time, back when I first started, the internet wasn't really sort of a thing. It was kind of a, dial up had just started. If you remember when it sounded like your modem was a robot in hospice. And so
I always thought of it as a very overwhelmed peregrine falcon.
But so nowadays, see guys wanting to start in comedy now, they can just Google what to do, and there's all kinds of advice anywhere and everywhere. So when I started, there was none of that. We had books. And so I had a book about how to start. There's my one hand again, by the way. And so when I was kind of like reading all these books and learning, and one of the sections was your first time on stage. And I'm going to come back to that. During that first performance, no one laughed except for one guy who was in the front who would kind of give me like sort of a half smile and a nod, kind of like a, and that was the best I got at anybody. And so in this book, it said, if you made just one person smile, you have reason to continue. And so between that book, kind of giving me a little bit of motivation, and then a friend just keep telling me, try. So that's where I was like, okay, I will do it one more time and see how it goes. And then sure enough, so it was the Funny Bone. If folks don't know, the Funny Bone is sort of like a chain of comedy clubs. There was the Funny Bone in Springfield, Illinois, and you used to pay $5 to get on the stage, and then they would decide who the funniest comedian was at the open mic, and the winner would get the money. So I'm trying to do the math. It worked out that it was $200, whatever that is. Is that 40? Holy cow, I'd be 40 people. But so I'm standing toward the back with this guy who's trying to be friendly, another comedian. And when I see him, I was like, oh, this guy sucks, right? And so they announced, and the winner is Jeremy Nunes. And I was like, yeah. And he goes to high five me, and I pretended like I didn't see him. It's like that. I got an ego that quickly. It took 2 shows for me to be like, don't touch me. I mean,
security. That is hilarious. Oh my gosh. Oh man.
So you was talking about SNL. And I used to be a big SNL fan. Out of all everybody you've seen on SNL, who would you consider like your favorite SNL personality or actor?
Man, that's tough to say there because so many of them are so good. A guy who I think is really underrated. I'm not going to say one of the more prominent names that you might hear, like a Chris Farley or an Adam Sandler or Will Ferrell, Jimmy Fallon. You know who I think is really underrated is Bill Hader. And little side note, I can't think of the year, 2006, 2007, somewhere in there. They cast based on looks. So they were looking at the time for a tall, slim white guy. And I got the call they did sort of they kind of herded together some comedians in Chicago because they go all around and herd people in this city, et cetera, for the first round of the auditions. And I didn't get it, but Bill Hader did. And so I got no ill will toward that guy because I feel like he's just supremely talented.
Oh my gosh!
Honestly, I thought you was gonna say Jim Brewer. And that's probably one of my favorites. But
he's great too. Absolutely.
I used to love the Joe Pesci show. That was hilarious.
He actually. Good, Stephen.
I was just gonna say I remember the first time because I think I had gotten out of the watching SNL frequently, and I remember watching Bill Hader for the first time on the movie Hot Rod with Andy Samberg and him, and there was another guy, Danny, I forgot, but anyway, I was like, who is this guy? And then I started to see him more and more in SNL and everything, and he's hilarious. He's one of my favorites too, to be honest.
And in a little movie Jim Brewer was Adventureland.
Jim Brewer was in Hot Rod.
Okay.
Jim Brewer was in Hot Rod.
No, Bill Hader was.
Oh, Bill Hader. Wasn't he a writer on South Park?
I'm not sure.
Think about it.
I will. I have Google right in front of me, but I'm not going to.
So we talk about SNL. I was just wondering, like, now you sort of in the movie business. What's your favorite movie that you was on?
Well, geez. So I was in The Breakup. I had a small little bit in that. I had a small bit in The Layover. I'm trying to think. I think those are the only 2 movies I've done. And I haven't seen The Layover. So I'll go with The Breakup.
Anytime that you ever played in the movie or worked with someone, did you ever have like distaste for a certain person that you really, really wanted to meet in comedy?
You know, everybody I've interacted with has actually been pretty good. Vince Vaughn was really good to me. And then you saw the Dry Bar special. I tell the story of Kate Upton in The Layover. She was super nice as well. And the co-star in that, her name's Alexandra Daddario. They were super cool. I have not run into an issue where somebody was tough to deal with, except I don't know if I should tell this story. But so when I came up through the Improv Olympic in Chicago, it's a big comedy theater similar to Second City, in which a lot of prominent comedians cut their teeth there and then went on to bigger and better things. So they're having a 25th anniversary show where all these comedians who had come up and become famous came back to put on a show. And there was a very, very famous comedian there who, I've only heard of this, hadn't experienced it, insisted no one look at him. And I couldn't believe it. So I don't know if I should say who that was, but Austin Powers, great movie.
I was about to say, go ahead and say the name. Like, we won't tell nobody. It's only about 7 people. 7 people watch the show, so it's not like you're gonna have like. It's like I was interviewing Steve Brown. I'll go ahead and get to this now. It was like Steve Brown. He's a partner on the CTS, and he was I wanted to ask him, like, what was his story of, getting started in comedy. And he's talked about it many times in interviews and many times over the years about a certain individual. I'm not going to say his name because I haven't edited the interview just yet at the time of this recording, but he refused to say his name. And I was like, why don't you just say the damn name? And he got kind of pissy a little bit. And I was like, just say, you talked about it many thousand times. And of course he said the name, and I was like, wasn't that so like, damn. Like, God, like you haven't talked about it before. But shouts out to Steve Brown. Okay.
Oh man, is he gonna go on your wrestling podcast, Joe?
No, Steve probably one day is gonna kick my.
He might wrestle you in real life. Yeah.
If you look on YouTube, right now, there's a video of him, like somebody who was bipolar jumped on stage, started trying to fight him, and you can tell that Muggs got skills because I've always told my son. My dad told me he was a boxer. He told me once somebody gets up in your space, the fight is on. And the whole time he was on stage, he had his hands up and he kept a distance because, he didn't want to do anything to the guy. He didn't know what was going on. It's a video right now you can watch on. He was in South Carolina and somebody jumped him. Somebody tried to, fight him. And that's like probably a comedian's worst nightmare. Would you agree, Jeremy?
There is an infamous story, and it's on the web somewhere if you look for it. So there's this is a true story. So there's a comedian, he plays guitar, all right? Not me. And this is back in the 80s in the comedy boom. And now here's something else. Nobody gets up on the stage at you unless you're at sort of like a bar room or something. Like, I mean, the comedy clubs generally have security and bouncers. They would never let it get that far. But yeah. So there's a video this guy just keeps heckling and heckling, and the comedian's making fun of him. And the guy's getting mad. And then the heckler stands up. He's like, well, I'm going to come up there. I'll fight you. Blah, blah, blah. So then the comedian takes his guitar off and is like holding it like a baseball bat. And he's like, if you come up here, I'm smashing my guitar over your head. And he's like, I'm coming up. I'll come up. And he's like, I'm going to hit you with my guitar if you come up. And then so the guy comes up and he nails the guitar over his head. And now, Joe, I know you're a pro wrestling fan. This was not one of the gimmicked guitars. I mean, this was a legit guitar. Busts over the guy's head. You can see the blood come down. And the dude just falls down. And you can hear the guy go, I want my money back.
Oh, my God. That ended on a bad note, I think.
And then and that's not even the best part. And so, and then the audience turns on the comedian. They're like, "That was uncalled for," and he's like, I told him I was good." And so, two parts of this that are fantastic. One, that guy was the opening act, so the headliner still had to go up after the fact.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
And then the rumor in the comedy world is that the remnants of that guitar were purchased by Dennis Miller. And he has that somewhere as sort of a nod to the comedy history.
That's amazing. I'm imagining it like a mosaic with, a couple color, some crimson tinged pieces and everything.
And I'm almost certain, I haven't looked in a few years, but it's been living on YouTube for quite a while.
Oh my God, that's fun. I had the chance to interview Sandy Danto. He went on tour with Pauly Shore for a long time, and he ended up opening for Bobby Lee too. And when he was opening up for Bobby Lee in, I think it was in Ontario, California, at a club 3 minutes in, he was doing crowd work, and he said something to a wrong guy. I think he was like a gangbanger type person, and the guy, he was like, I can't even remember what it was, but the guy got furious and he started trying to take off his shirt and get in a fight with him. And he was like, the security was there and they were trying to handle the situation, but the guy was going crazy and he almost got up to the stage. And Sandy, you could see he's terrified, but he's also making jokes like, world star or whatever. And people were going crazy and then they got scared and then they were laughing. So it's just crazy to hear these types of things and see, now that we have YouTube and the internet, like, see these types of things happen. It terrifies me to go up on stage, but I don't know. It's interesting. I know that you've toured, obviously, you've headlined at clubs, you've also done mega churches and corporate events and things like that. But I wanted to ask, when you started, I think it was after Second City that you started becoming a full-time comedian. What was that experience like for getting booked for gigs, and then how has that evolved over time?
So when I first kind of started out, it was, kind of the booking agencies are who are filling your calendar. So generally there's the Funny Agency of America has, they booked the club in Raleigh, North Carolina, and they got a club in Chicago, and they got a club in St. Louis, and, et cetera, et cetera. So they'll call you up and say, okay, well, we'll put you in. And that was back then, they did it over the phone. Now it's all email. But but they'll call you and say, okay, are you open May 23rd, 24th? We'll put you in Raleigh there. And we got a bar show in Charlotte, North Carolina the night before. We could say, stuff like that. So
interesting. You
get in with one agency, they've got maybe 5 weekends of work, and another agency's got maybe 7. And, little at a time, you got to get in with each of these agencies. Okay. And that's how your calendar fills. So you start out as sort of the opening act, and those guys are getting maybe $100, $150 a show. And then sort of the main act is more around, $250 a show is what a lot of those guys get now. So that's kind of how you work your way through, and then eventually start making enough money you can kind of go out on your own. And then the goal is eventually to be a big enough name that you can just call the club and be like, hey, I'm Bill Burr. I'd like a weekend at your show, versus having to just beg and plead for work wherever you go. So I'm like sort of halfway in between. Sometimes they tell me get lost, and sometimes they say, yeah, we'll sign you up. So it just depends. We'll see. A lot of people think I'm funny, not my son though.
Well, That's so funny you said that because, usually when I go in somebody's bedroom, they tell me to get lost.
Yeah, I usually need an agency to help get me in there. Yeah.
You're the only person who's ever laughed at that joke. Thank you, Jeremy. And it was stuff, not only did you laugh at that joke, Settanni messed it up and
I put a tag on it. I put a tag on it. That's my gift to you.
You took my moment. That was like the only joke I had.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That was a great joke.
Now I'm still the third funniest person on the show. Oh, Joey, you was never funny.
Yes, that is true. That is true. I tried to keep my feet off of it, but I did end up trudging on it with some iron toe boots. So I'm sorry, Joe.
Yes. Yeah. Not only did you step on my punchline, you stepped on my heart. You stepped on my heart right there.
Well, I think one of those things can be mended.
Not the punchline.
No, that one's done. That one's dead. We're having the funeral for it tomorrow afternoon. But your heart, hopefully, it will heal.
But you brought up, Jeremy can help me out on this part right here. You talked about, calling people up. I was watching the Comedy Store documentary on Showtime, and they had an episode where they had certain comedians, come on and just, hey, look, such and such is going to be on tonight, and then they'll come into the Comedy Store and jump ahead of them and do like 2 hours. Has that ever happened to you?
I haven't had anybody just bounce me all together. Now, there's been plenty of times when people come, show up unexpectedly and they ask for a 10-minute spot, and then I was supposed to do 45, and they're like, hey, you got to pull it back to 35. That happened to me. I don't know if you know the name Hannibal Buress. Hannibal and I. Hannibal Buress. Okay. But Hannibal and I actually started together in Carbondale at Southern Illinois University many years ago. And then sure enough, I crossed paths with him again in Chicago at Zany's, the big comedy club there downtown. And they're like, I remember them telling me, hey, you're going to have to do 10 minutes left. 10 minutes less. We got a guy coming in. He's trying to get a good video for a late night show. And I was like, oh, who's coming? And they're like, Hannibal Buress. And I was like, hey, my college buddy's coming in here. So, I know that's happened. And, let's see. That happened, if you remember, I think his name's Ty Barnett. He was on Last Comic Standing many years ago and won. I think he won, or was close to anyway. But he, had to shave some time for him once. And I can think of Craig Robinson from The Office. He was the warehouse guy.
Yeah.
I've had to shave some time for him, too. But as the case with all three of those guys, all of them were super nice to me afterwards, and we, hung and whatnot. So no complaints. They didn't have anybody that just like cost me a night of work or anything like that.
To live in Jersey and would work in Manhattan, and I remember going to the Comedy Cellar and then hearing about comics too, where it's like sometimes if it's going through clubs, like maybe at a Phoenix club or something, there's a scheduled headliner and an opener or a feature, and then there's some guest spots that can be given out if whoever, maybe the manager / the headliner, agree to it. But then at like the Comedy Cellar, or the Comedy Store, like you were saying, Joe, it just seems like there's 6 or 7 comics in a lineup, and I was 6 or 7 comics in a lineup, and then if someone comes in, like I remember seeing at the Comedy Cellar, Chris Rock just decided to come in. He had his pieces of paper and his notes, and he had his glasses on, and he was just like, all right, the police. And then he'd just go on a joke about that. And so it's really interesting to see that, and thinking about, it's an interesting perspective, Joe, and you too, Jeremy, that you were talking about, where it's like, oh no, there's somebody that might be losing time for somebody that might be taking it. But it seems like in most cases, people are very respectful of that. Maybe have even been on the other end of it, and then are appreciative of you giving up a little bit of time. So that's really cool.
Yeah, you never know. You never know who's going to pop in. Most of the time, I'm just more excited to see a bigger name show up at the club. I'm like, the biggest name on this club is Jeremy Nunes. Never heard of him. He probably sucks.
My last question is, I noticed on your stand-up special, Dry Bar, You said you went to Wrestlemania. How big of a wrestling fan are you?
So I'm a pretty big wrestling fan. Big enough that I spank my son with a steel chair. I'm just kidding. Don't send DCFS to my house.
Promo clip. That's the promo clip. Just kidding.
I'm going to tell y'all something. See, that upsets me because does your son watch wrestling with you?
He won't watch it. He doesn't like it.
That's my biggest problem. That I can't get my son. Not only will my son not watch wrestling, he won't watch football. He doesn't want to watch anything that he even thinks I like. Like if he even thinks I like it, he doesn't even want to watch it.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is because when I grew up, I can remember watching wrestling as being as little as possible. Just a tiny little thing, and I loved wrestling. And I thought at some point he's going to want to watch wrestling with me. And every time I turned it on, he just doesn't care. He's rather watch Bubble Guppies or something.
Yeah, how old is your son?
6.
See, yeah, I try to, this. I got a 1-year-old, and I'm gonna train him. Like every time I'm watching wrestling, I'm gonna have him right here on my chair. See, that's something I didn't do with my son. I was like, take him. I'm watching The Rock. Can't just The Rock is back, baby. Damn it, just take the baby. So now with my 1-year-old, I have him right there. He's gonna watch it with me. The violence is gonna instill 2 things is gonna happen. 1, he's gonna become a killer. 2, he's gonna become a wrestling fan. 1 or 2. So I don't know which one. I'm hoping for the wrestling fan.
You're gonna be a proud father either way. Are you gonna also put the little spandex on him instead of the diaper? It just has like, what's your baby's name? Lil Baby.
Well, my big fear, I always have to complain to my wife because she always puts on like all these murdered documentary shows, like the true crime stuff. I'm like, we got 2 little kids watching every part of it. I'll walk in the room. I'm like, I ask you not to put this on when the kids are in there. They're going to be so desensitized. And then my boy will be like, yeah, that guy got stabbed in the face.
But see, all 3 of us were married men, and at least, to women. Anyway,
correct.
I don't know where are you going with that, Joe. I'm not following.
Yeah,
that's why I don't get paid to be a comedian, y'all.
Is this the type of partnership you were talking about, Joe? I don't know.
So my question is that with your kids, do you see them getting more, I guess, how do you say, interested in what your wife does more so than what you do? Like my son, he wants to do everything his mama wants to do. And I'm just like, dude, come on, let's do some man stuff. Let's build something, or I don't know, drink a beer together. He's like, no, I don't drink beer. I'm 9. I'll stop being a punk. Drink the beer.
That was a good joke, Joe. That was
thank you.
That was better than the bedroom one, and I'm glad I didn't step on it because that one is thriving and alive and beautiful. So that was wow.
Yeah, I would say he's got kind of an even mix of who he wants to hang out with, and something I need to work on as a dad is when he wants to kind of help with the yard work. And I'm like, and I know I'm going to get done 100 times faster if he's not involved. But I got to work on letting him be involved. So that, when he gets older, that's something he's going to be responsible for with his own family. And even sooner than that, when I make him do it when he gets home from school.
I was going to ask, I think I just have one other question, and it's around, I heard on an interview, you were talking about and I think this is genius too, your outreach strategy, because you are basically, and you talked about earlier in the interview, bypass. You were with agencies, then you decided to kind of bypass them because it's easier and you get a bigger cut and you have more control of what you're doing. And so I think for all those good reasons, you ended up doing it. And then your outreach strategy now, I don't want to spill too much secret sauce, so I'll keep it in the container, but you send a lot of emails out a month. And I was going to ask, how do you manage to stay abreast of your inbox and make sure that everything is updated and you're responding to everybody that responds to you and closing deals, I guess we could say, with the leads that you find.
Well, I was trying to figure out which podcast you listened to that you heard all this stuff. Would you listen to the First Laugh podcast? Is that what it was, or something different? Or do you remember?
I don't. I listened to a couple podcasts, so it's all just a Nunes blur, if you will. Okay. a Nunes smoothie. So it went down smooth, but I just can't remember what bits I put in there. So.
Nunes smoothie. That's Bill Cosby made me one of those one time.
That should be the promo clip. That is beautiful. Oh God.
So let me think. Oh, well, so I've got trying to think here. Yeah, so I send I don't even remember what I said on the show, how long ago it was or whatever. So I would estimate I send ballpark I don't know, right now maybe 200 emails in a week, I would guess, something like that.
Okay. On the one that I heard, it was 100. So you've doubled in
100
production.
A week, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. I was doing close to 100 a day at one point. So, so, as you know, another guy that inspired me, I'm going to tell a little side story to explain myself here. Is Jeff Foxworthy, another guy that kind of inspired me. And he used to always say, there's plenty of guys that are funnier than me, but I won't let anyone work harder than me. And so,
love that.
So that's a big part of it right there. So I just send. And then I've got, I use MailChimp for my mail tracking software. And there's all kinds of cool stuff you can do in there. And then I've got just the inbox. I track my inbox, pretty thoroughly. I organize it once a month. Every Wednesday of the month, I have a special project. So like the third Wednesday of the month, I reconfigure the email inbox. And then, if they're interested, I put them in a special folder. If I don't hear back, I generally let them go or maybe follow up one more time. But it's all sales. In the comedy world, even like I mentioned, the talent agencies, the comedy clubs, those guys are getting 100 emails a day from 100 different comics who all say they're the guy who should be hired. So I used to read sales books and stuff because you have to prove why out of the 100 people that they could choose, why should they choose you? Yeah. So kind of similar to when I tricked my wife into falling in love with me. So
sent her an email, followed up, and
that's right.
I paid my wife. I don't know what y'all do. Why are you laughing?
No,
you wasn't supposed to?
Did I step on your punchline? Sorry.
No, it wasn't a punchline. I gave her a couple $100 and I was like, you want to get married? She was like, okay, I'm not gonna. She had nothing to do that day. 11 years later, she still likes the money.
There you go, man. If you can provide your wife $100 a day, that's a livable wage, I suppose.
Pretty good.
You never lived with me before. I'm going to leave you with this. You talk about Jeff Foxworthy. This is my poor attempt of humor. We had Bill Engvall on the show. And after we close up, once I close up here, you're going to hear me say, stay on the line, blah, blah, blah. So I had Stingray, you probably know Stingray. If you're a college football fan, you know who Stingray is. Hell State, he did the Mississippi State videos, and he's a partner on the CTS. And he also has another network. So we close up, and it was like, Bill, Stingray, stay on the line, everybody else, I stopped the recording and I was like, hey, Bill, so how was that? And he was like, yeah, that's real good. I had a good time, fellas. And he's still wondering how the hell, what his publicist did to, what did he do wrong to get on this network? Like what's doing here? But so Stingray started trying to, ask, will you come on my show on another network? And Bill was like, yeah, just talk to my publicist and everything. And this was my opportunity to show off me being funny. So Stingray finishes up, and he's like, "Hey, just call my publicist, blah blah blah." And I went, "Hey, yeah, would you do my kid's birthday as well?" Thinking Bill would be like, "Yeah, you're a funny guy. You should go on the road with me because you're the man." Bill looked right in the camera, and he went, "No." And I'm sitting there like laughing, like uncomfortably, like, yeah. And then the next thing you hear is, "Okay, I got to go, guys. Bye." And I was like, "That's my shot. There goes my shot to ever get a big name on this network." And ladies and gentlemen, today we got Jeremy Nunes back on this show. A big name. Before you go, will you please tell everybody about your Amazon Prime special?
Yeah, thanks, man. So a few things. You guys talked about the Dry Bar Comedy Special and the Amazon Special. If you search my name on either platform, you'll find it. And then the big thing I'm so excited about, I don't think we talked about it, but I was mayor of my hometown. And when it all wrapped up, I wrote a hilarious book about it. It's called You Can't Write City Hall. And it's available at Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Walmart, Amazon. It comes out May 4, but You Can't Write City Hall. Available for pre-order right now, or you can go to youcan'twritecityhall.com for more information.
And last but certainly not least, Mr. Settanni. First off, since you are my favorite guest of all time, I want to thank you for coming back and helping me with this. I couldn't have done this interview by myself. I've tried many times. You can watch 109 videos. I've tried to do interviews by myself, and I suck. But you came on, and you made this comedy go. I thank you.
Well, first off, thank you. And thank you for including me with an extra special guest like Jeremy Nunes. That's amazing. And,
you did drink his smoothie.
I did drink his smoothie. Yes, the Nunes blend. And you know what? That training that we had before the show where I was like, do not invite Jeremy to do your son's birthday party, and you haven't asked him yet, so this is great. And thank you so much for having me. If you guys want to listen to my podcast, it's a comedy advice podcast, so you can go to comedyadvicepodcast.com. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter.
Ladies and gentlemen, I gotta say, to the funniest man alive today on my show, I'm the luckiest guy in the world, and you're lucky if you're watching it. If you have not hit the subscribe button, Jeremy Settanni, shut up.
I'm sorry.
Y'all can't see him.
I said I'm the luckiest guy in the world on my wedding day, but you have two funny guys on your podcast. You're the luckiest guy in the world. Maybe that's all. That's it. Sorry.
As I was saying, like, you know what? Hell with it. Everybody else, if you haven't hit the subscribe button, hit the subscribe button. Jeremy, everybody just stay on the line. Everybody else, I'll see you next Sunday. I hate you.
Peace and love.